morning, students. We will be continuing with the digestive system which we had learned last time. Last time we had seen the organs, mouth, the teeth which is present in there, the salivary glands, and we had also learned about the pharynx and the esophagus. So today we are going to continue with it and we will be learning about the next organ which is the stomach. Now stomach, if you look at it in the picture which is given on page 5, is like a sac-like structure. It looks like a sac. In the stomach, what happens? The function of the stomach is to churn the food because of the digestive juices which are present there. It releases digestive juices. The digestive juices would make the food and convert it into some form of a slurry. A slurry is something which has good amount of water in it and it is like a mixture of food and water. Okay, that is a slurry. And this slurry then goes to the small intestine. Now what happens in a stomach? There are gastric glands which release gastric juices. The gastric juices which are released in the stomach are basically of 3 types. The first one is hydrochloric acid. It's an acid present in the stomach. Then you have pepsin, which is an enzyme, and in the gastric juices you also have mucus. Okay? Now, what is the function of these things? Or what do these hydrochloric acid, pepsin and mucus, these gastric juices do in our body? Now, the basic function of hydrochloric acid is to make the food acidic in nature. That will help to break down the food easily. So, therefore, the basic function of hydrochloric acid, which is our first gastric juice, is to make the food acidic. The next one you have is pepsin. Now, what pepsin does is, it breaks down the protein. Proteins are broken down into simpler forms which can be easily absorbed by the body. Proteins are basically broken down into amino acids. Along with pepsin, there is something called as mucus. Now, why is mucus so important in our stomach? Why is it secreted? Since there is a lot of acidity, it's acidic in nature and there is a lot of acid present there, that acid may damage the inner linings of your stomach in the long run. So, in order to protect your stomach or the linings of your stomach from damage, you need to have something which is called as the mucus. So, mucus does the work of protection. Hydrochloric acid makes the food acidic, it breaks down the food, and the main function of pepsin is to break down protein. As you saw, carbohydrates, the beginning of digestion of carbohydrates began in the mouth, wherein the saliva was breaking down carbohydrates. The starch present in the carbohydrates was broken down into maltose. Whereas in the stomach, you have the next nutrient which is broken down, that is the proteins, with the help of the enzyme pepsin. Now, let's move on to our next topic. The food from the stomach then moves to the small intestine. Now, before the function of the small intestine begins, let us understand what is the role of the liver and the pancreas at this junction. Now, what is liver? A liver is the largest gland which is present in our body. As you know, the food that we eat doesn't pass through the liver nor the pancreas. So what happens is, liver and pancreas, they secrete certain enzymes, certain chemicals which are essential for this process of digestion when the food reaches the small intestine. So what does liver do? Liver has something, if you look at the diagram here, given on page 85, the red portion here you can see, this is the liver. The small green-like structure which is given here, that is the gallbladder, and this structure which is given over here, this is the pancreas. Now what is the function of the liver? In the liver you have something called as gallbladder. Now the gallbladder is the one which secretes in something called as bile. Now this bile is very essential because bile makes the food alkaline in nature. So this bile enters the food and makes it alkaline. Initially, before bile came into place, the food was acidic in nature due to the hydrochloric acid which was present in the stomach. Now as the food enters the small intestine, bile is released. Because of the bile, the food becomes alkaline in nature. It is no longer acidic. It becomes alkaline. And also, bile helps in emulsification of fats. Now what do you mean by emulsification of fats? Emulsification of fats means the larger fat molecules are broken down into smaller fat molecules. So now we finished with, we are not finished, we are in the process. Carbohydrates, digestion of carbohydrates has started, proteins has started, and now we have the fats. The fats, the bigger fat molecules are broken down into smaller fat molecules by the bile. So that is the basic function. Therefore, this is how liver plays a role in the digestion process and it becomes a part of the digestive system. Next, we have the pancreas. As you can see in the image, here what we have is the pancreas. Now, what does pancreas do? Pancreas have glands which release pancreatic juices. Now these pancreatic juices are very essential for the digestion of food. Now pancreatic juices are basically of three types. Basically, pancreatic juices consist of three things, just like how the gastric glands used to release. There is pancreatic amylase, there is trypsin, and there is something called as lipase. Now when are these pancreatic juices released? They are released at the beginning of the small intestine. So all these juices get mixed with the food when it enters the small intestine. And the main function of the small intestine begins there, which is digestion of maximum of the food. Breaking down the food maximum. So that when it moves ahead, the digestion process is almost complete or is complete. Now let us understand what these things do. Pancreatic amylase is similar to the salivary amylase, ptyalin, which was present in the mouth. What was it doing? Breaking down carbohydrates. So here also this pancreatic amylase breaks down the carbohydrates which is present in the food into simpler sugars which can be easily absorbed by our body. After pancreatic amylase, we have trypsin. Trypsin is similar to pepsin and it helps in the breaking down of protein molecules. And lipase is the enzyme which helps in breaking down fats into fatty acids and glycerol which can be easily absorbed by the body. Proteins are broken down into something called as amino acids. So this is the function of the three pancreatic juice. Pancreatic amylase takes care of carbohydrates. The trypsin takes care of proteins. It breaks down the proteins. And lipase, it breaks down the fat molecules. Now let us understand what happens in the small intestine. So I hope this part is clear. The food never enters livers and the pancreas. They only take part in the reaction. They basically act as glands, that is they give the chemicals which are required for the entire system to function. So in liver we have a gallbladder which releases bile. The bile makes the food alkaline in nature and it helps in emulsification of fats. Pancreas release pancreatic juice which are again of three types: pancreatic amylase, trypsin and lipase. This helps in breakdown of carbohydrates into simpler sugars. Trypsin breaks down proteins, whereas lipase helps in the breakdowns of fats into fatty acids and glycerol which can be easily absorbed by the body. In the small intestine. Small intestine, as you can see in the image which is given here, the one which is present here, this is the small intestine. Now a small intestine, the length of it is around 6 meters. It is a structure which is 6 meters long. Now as you saw, so because of the pancreatic juices and all the bile and everything which is present in this, which enters the small intestine, the food is broken down and it is digested. Now whatever is digested, the aim of our body is to absorb these nutrients which are present in the food. Only if it enters the body will our body be able to use it. It should enter the blood. So most of the absorption of the food takes place in the small intestine. So the food is entirely broken down. Absorption of food, absorption of the nutrients which is present in the food takes place, and then the food moves on to our next organ, which is the large intestine. The large intestine is 1.5 meters long. By the time the food reaches the large intestine, it is broken down, it is almost digested. Whatever has to be absorbed from that is already absorbed, and the remaining part is the undigested part and water. So the water is reabsorbed in the large intestine. the water would be reabsorbed by the body, because our body doesn't want to waste much water. So the amount of water that we use for digestion is large. So we don't want to waste all the water. So the water is again reabsorbed to some extent. That happens in the large intestine. Now after the food and everything is absorbed, the undigested part has to be expelled out of the body. That means it has to be thrown out of the body. And it is thrown out of the body through the anus. So anus helps in expelling the undigested food. And this is exactly how the digestive system works. I hope you have understood how the digestive system works. Now if you look at page 86, they have given you a table which we have already discussed. The various organs present. You can see the small intestine here given has intestinal juice, and it basically does the conversion of everything. The proteins, carbohydrates and fats. It is also similar to the pancreatic juices. So whatever the pancreatic juices, that is breaking down of carbohydrates, breaking down of proteins and breaking down of fats, that is also done in the small intestine along with the absorption of food. So you need to go through this table as well. It's very interesting. And now since we are being given this organ, it is our duty to protect our body. Now there are certain intoxicating substances like tobacco, which is very harmful to the body. Now when you consume tobacco, either through smoking usually affects the lungs, but then when you eat tobacco, what happens is these particles which remain in the mouth, or at time, even if you spit it out, so then what happens is it gets absorbed. At some point of time, this whatever you are trying to eat, the intoxicating substances, enters your stomach, and it will have a very adverse effect on your body. It may even lead to cancer, which may ultimately lead to death of a person. So why should we harm our body with things which are not beneficial to us? Tobacco consumption doesn't give us energy. We already have seen that it is the carbohydrates, proteins, fats which is present in our food, full of nutrition. That is what gives us energy, and that is what our body requires. Your body doesn't require tobacco. Why are we harming them? So it should be in our mind. We should be aware of the ill effects of these and try to make as many people as we can around us aware about this fact. So with this we complete this chapter, and I hope you have understood this. Thank you so much.